Previously at the school assembly.
This shit sucks, bro.
Cody Miller, that's the last straw. Go to the principal's office right now.
And now the signal is calling. Happy New Year, everyone. As you can tell from the sound of my voice, I'm not exactly operating at my best right now. Although, then again, when did I ever do that on this channel? Basically, I'm just getting through a cold right now, but no worries, I'll be okay. Drinking plenty of fluids and taking things easy. I'm not one of those people that likes to, try to get a whole lot done because it's January, it's the beginning of a new year. Like, I'm not one of those people, personally. Also, I'm not going to be doing a 7-minute prologue like I did with part 1 of the Lost Galaxy videos, just because I don't feel like it's really necessary for this. Really all I can say is that this is the first Power Ranger season that I have any form of nostalgia for. I remember watching episodes when it aired on Fox Kids. I had the Power Rangers in 3D VHS tape that was sold at McDonald's. I also had, from McDonald's as well, the Happy Meal toys of the Lightspeed Rescue Rangers. They all came with a piece of a Megazord, and I think once you put them all together, I forget which Megazord it made up, but I always liked that. I think I still have the figures. I think they're in a storage bin somewhere down in the basement. I'll have to look for them. If I find them, I'll take a picture and share that in part 2 of this. But yeah, no, Lightspeed Rescue, I have a lot of vivid memories of, and I, just like with Lost Galaxy, I rewatched all 40 episodes of it in preparation for this, and yeah, there's really not much else to say other than, hey look, there's me at 4 years old, dressed as the Red Ranger.
I'm so cute.
So with all that said, take it away, me from 6 months ago. Enough of my talking. Let's just get right into it. Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue. Ready? Let's go.
Father, they've escaped.
Time to bring them in.
Thank God we'll be saved by Clark Kent, the Pink Punk, Mega Pornstache Man, the Mighty Falsies, and Elderly Woman. Or rather,
Falsies?
welcome one and all to Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue. Space is big and impressive, and full of wonders and terrors and all sorts of things that captivate humanity. It makes us want to go into it, explore it, find new things beyond our little marble. And thus, while it can be cheesy to have stories go to space, there's a reason why Star Trek called it the final frontier. And after experiencing some of the story and location possibilities offered by going into space and doing something new, it can feel like a step backwards to stop going into it. It's the thought process that was probably on the mind of the producers when they were creating Lost Galaxy, hence why we got a space opera revolving around powers that had more to do with animals and nature than with anything space-related. Lightspeed Rescue was also purportedly planned as a space-themed series as well, but for one reason or another, it was decided to make it Earth-based again. And honestly, that was probably for the best. As good as In Space and Lost Galaxy were, trying to shove a square peg into a triangular hole yet again with Sentai footage not involving space would probably have pushed things too far by this point, and potentially make people bored of the concept of being in space yet again. Too much of a good thing can happen, and it'd be easy to get sick of outer space by diving into that well once more. And thus, Lightspeed Rescue plants us right back onto terra firma, and for a while seems to ignore what had happened in the last 2 seasons. On that note, some minor things to bring up in regards to Lost Galaxy that I neglected to mention. Sometimes because I either couldn't find information, or because I didn't find them to be relevant information. For instance, Mike's morpher into the Magna Defender is actually the morphing device from the Sentai Die Ranger. I generally don't comment on that kind of thing because it has no bearing on Power Rangers. Reusing props is sometimes cool and fun to point out, like the Starship Troopers armor, but I'm not really a Sentai watcher. Most of the audience is here for Power Rangers itself, and it's just a detail that affects nothing in the story. On the subject of Die
Ranger, for those who don't know, that's the season where this iconic costume came from. Just felt like I needed to fill people in case they didn't know what Die Ranger was. Then again, I barely know what it is either. I don't really watch Sentai, although I am watching one season of Super Sentai in particular right now. But I'll get into that another time.
Ranger, there has been a rumor for decades that there was supposed to be a more involved storyline concerning powers from 3,000 years ago, that there would be ancient rangers, and that they'd use the Die Ranger suits for the footage of that time since they purchased the right to use the footage. Thing is, according to longtime writer and producer Jackie Marchand in an interview with Den of Geek, no, there were never plans to use the Die Ranger suits. The idea of using the footage certainly kept cropping up since they had purchased it, but it just kept being put on the back burner, eventually getting to a point where the footage was just too old looking to use compared to what they were using at the time. Still, on the subject of shifting gears, something that has been confirmed is that Scorpius was supposed to be the final villain for the show, but in practice, trying to move and operate the large puppet for him proved to be awkward and cumbersome to do, hence why they decided to shift the focus to Trakina as the main villain. And honestly, that ended up really working to their benefit. Maybe that shift, since it altered a lot of the character dynamics and also required more setup and payoff, plus Scorpius' presence 3,000 years ago versus Trakina, affected how much time they'd have to do any Ancient Ranger stuff, Die Ranger footage or not. But that's just speculation. And again, the fact that despite the production difficulties, they still managed to put together a damn solid season shows these people were not incapable of reworking stuff on the fly. And with that out of the way, let's dive in and get into this season. The series begins with Operation Lightspeed, where we see three men stumbling upon a buried chamber in the desert. They discover a casket and push the lid open, revealing it to be the Ark of the Covenant. No, of course, but in practice, it's not that different, actually. A group of multicolored spirits emerge from the casket and fly off. Less face-melting, though. The Lightspeed theme song is, once again, just okay. It has some addictive elements, but it's, once again, not anything special.
The signal is calling, our planet is falling.
Again, like Lost Galaxy's theme, it's not bad, just that I never really have any deep desire to revisit it. And one minor frustrating part of it is that in the middle, it sounds like it's ending when the music dies down on
Lewis,
Rangers Save the Day, but then it just starts up again.
Rangers save the day.
Anyway, the spirits emerge in the city of Mariner Bay and start attacking it. We immediately cut to some sort of military facility where the person in charge, Captain Mitchell, is informed of the spirits being freed. He says it's time to bring them in, and we cut to our new team. First up is Joel Rawlings, the Sky Cowboy, a famous stunt pilot. Next is Kelsey Winslow, who's climbing a mountain only to be met by the men in black at the top. Third is Chad Lee, a SeaWorld performer. Finally, there's Carter Grayson, a firefighter in the middle of rescuing a little girl from a burning building. In the building, he spots a monster and then leaps out of it, saving the girl. The fifth member is the one who's actually been recruiting them, a paramedic named Dana Mitchell, the captain's daughter. We then get to meet, rather quickly, our villains. It seems that Mariner Bay was built on top of a demonic temple, which probably violates some zoning regulations, and the demons, led by a creature called Diabolico, must care for a demon infant named Impus until the true leader, Queen Banshira, can return. The five humans are brought to a submarine and subsequently subsequently led to an underwater facility called the
sure he'll get
Lightspeed
into
Aqua
it
Base.
soon
It's
enough.
pretty high tech, especially since the flat screen panels look rather similar to the ones used on the Astro megaship. One of the rumors about this series' production was that the Zords and technology were developed after being reverse engineered from old destroyed Zords of the Rangers, but it was discarded because the producers wanted the show to have as little reference to previous seasons as possible, so it would be more accessible to new viewers. This is an attitude that would not last forever, though for the longest time, much of the references to the past would only come via the season requisite team-up. And I can confirm this takes place in the same universe as the previous seasons, so we can probably assume the reverse-engineered Ranger Tech explanation is the correct one, even if it's not set on screen. Hell, at one point I even heard the communicator beep from In Space used in the base. Reused sound effects for the production, or in-universe technology and software reuse. You make the call. Anyway, Captain Mitchell explains about the demons, who were locked away by a warlock 5,000 years ago.
Lightspeed has developed technology and highly sophisticated weapons that we believe can stop them.
And somewhere, there's a knockoff organization that named itself Ludicrous Speed Rescue. Joel doesn't believe them and wants to leave, but Carter explains about what he
their
saw in the burning
costumes
building.
plaid?
The group is shown footage of the spirits terrorizing people, and the four instantly volunteer. They're given their rescue morphers, which are sadly unimpressive to me. Nothing really wrong with them, it's just their flipping open seems so small. The top just quickly rotates open 90 degrees. Ooh, unleash the power. The group is given spiffy team jackets and a Humvee. See, it's totally recycled tech from other seasons. That's Tankenstein from In Space. And are sent off to deal with the demons.
wow.
The demons as foot soldiers, the Batlings, begin their attack on the people. The five try to fight them, with Carter going straight for just trying to run over the fire monster with his car. Carter Grayson, with the power of vehicular homicide. In all honesty, I actually instantly like this guy for this reason. Though he does get tossed around, same as the rest of the Rangers. Captain Mitchell instructs them to morph.
Lightspeed Rescue.
I might be mistaken, but I think this is the first season to really make the
my nipple.
ready
Oh, God.
thing a common occurrence in the show. If I am mistaken, well, I can at least say now that it's a common thing, right alongside the actual morphing calls. Something very different about this series from what's come before is that the five morph in plain sight. None of the secret identity stuff. And really, good. These people are supposed to be an officially sanctioned government team, and as such, their identities should be public for the sake of accountability. There's a difference between a mystical figure empowering five teenagers with attitude with the power, or a group of people pulling some swords from a stone as prophesized, versus the government giving five adults with attitude power to summon giant robots and laser guns. Anyway, I've got to say I wasn't really fond of the suits at first. I think it's just the pattern on the chest. Once again, too much white and not enough of their individual colors, plus the pattern doesn't extend to the back side of their outfits, so it kind of feels like one of those knockoff hollow action figure toy sets where they only painted the front. Admittedly, the design is better than the all-white
Lewis.
torsos of the Galaxy Rangers, and the outfits grew on me. However, I've come to realize why the suits look so familiar. Apparently, Lightspeed is funded by the Umbrella Corporation. Another thing that's kind of off-putting is that these are the first helmets without a sculpted mouth. Which makes sense. These were designed by a military organization for function, not aesthetics. Why would they need that kind of flourish for the outfit after all? The morphing sequence also bugs me. Passing through what looks like goo before they take shape. I wish I could describe what exactly it is that's unappealing about it, but it just doesn't feel right. With their new powers, the Rangers are able to fight off the Batlings and the monster, who bears a striking resemblance to Psycho Red's monster.
Then the morphing sequence, it actually kind of looks like the famous scene from 2001: A Space Odyssey, the ultimate trip scene. You know what I'm talking about. I'll probably just put it up on the screen right here. That scene, yeah, it reminds me of that. Just one second, I need to grab my phone. Sorry, just check something real quick. All right, let's get back to it.
Form? Huh, so I guess Astronema just straight up recruited some demons for the Psychos. Makes sense. Something else to note is that the Lightspeed team is also quicker to use their blasters to destroy the monster, even doing a kick-ass gun twirl before holstering them. The five return to the Aqua base, where Captain Mitchell tells them they've got a lot of work ahead of them. Operation Lightspeed is fast, though it of course needs to be. It has to introduce the Rangers, the enemies, and the concept of the show very quickly, and then move on to the next bits. In many ways, it feels reminiscent of Day of the Dumpster, with the mentor figure of Captain Mitchell introducing a group of normal people to a bizarre war with powers and abilities far beyond what they're accustomed to. An enemy that has been released from a long slumber inside of some kind of storage container, and the Rangers need to actually use their morphers in order to defeat the foot soldiers. On the subject of the villains, however, they have only one scene, and it's basically just exposition. We learn nothing about them as individuals, and there's nothing particularly interesting revealed about them in the first episode. Well, I suppose Vipra stood out from the others, but, only because of one thing.
Just what I thought. In my Vipari, I'm invincible.
Oh no, you're gonna talk like that the entire season, aren't you? Yeah, this is not a great performance. It's not even just the weird lisp she seems to have. Hell, I have a bit of a lisp, so I can sympathize there. It's that she seems incapable of raising her voice. When she's trying to express an emotion, she can barely speak above a normal tone.
I'll lay waste to Mariner Bay, so our Queen Banshura will rise. Again.
Being subdued isn't a problem if that's how you're written. As I said, Astronema and Trakina were at their best when they were first introduced and underplayed, but if you're trying to act over the top and instead just sound bored, then you're turning in a bad performance. Her face conveys nothing, and even after she gives off an evil laugh, it just returns to a blank expression. In the following episodes, we meet Jinxer, the finster of the new evil forces, who can create monsters by tossing out Magic the Gathering cards and using an incantation to summon the monster from them. And then there's Lokai. Lokai exists. Anyway, another difference for this season is that this Ranger team is a military operation, though begging the question of why the other four weren't recruited from their own ranks instead of seeking out civilians. With human-made Power Ranger technology, and the Aqua Base has a full staff of people ready to assist them. Thus, new weapons and technology come about because it's not just a robot buddy pushing buttons or one smart person doing all the heavy lifting like in the old days, though we'll mostly interact with the chief scientist. The Rangers themselves don't make much of an impression, save for Carter and Joel. Joel comes off as a douche, at least until he steps up to join them to fight the demons. And Carter is a little bland at first, but clearly heroic and selfless, which makes him a perfect fit for the Red Ranger position. Plus again, tactical thinking by finding the biggest threat on the field and trying to hit him with the biggest weapon they had. In the next episode, we're introduced to the aforementioned chief scientist, Dr. Fairweather, who's in charge of the weapons lab of the Aqua Base and the one who invented the rescue morphers. She also invents the team's Zords.
In the show, they call her Miss Fairweather. I never understood why. Like, she's a scientist. Call her Dr. Fairweather, just like Lewis just did. Like, I never understood that. I mean, I don't know if it was like an editorial thing or whatever. I don't know. It just seemed weird to me. But I do like her character. She's very, she was very capable. There was always this thing between her and Joel. Well, he kept trying to ask her out, but she kept rejecting her at every turn. It would make for some funny moments and some moments that were just kind of, cringy, but yeah, that's what happens with those kinds of, will they, won't they sort of things in TV.
These are your rail rescues. Trains?
Sure, why not? We had cars for a season,
trains.
so why not trains? Unlike previous teams whose knowledge of how to pilot the Zords seemed built into their powers, Fairweather explains that the rail rescues are designed to automatically assist the Rangers in their piloting. We also see them being deployed, and boy, it takes a while for those things to get to the surface. I'm sure half the city's been reduced to smoldering rubble by the time they finally get underway. Still,
can I just say, I actually really like that scene because the music in that sequence when, the rail rescue Zords are being, lifted up from underwater is really, really good. I mentioned last time that I wish that the music from these seasons would be available to listen to, whether it be on CD or streaming through Spotify or Apple Music or whatever. I know, Linkara, Lewis has always preferred the Ron Wasserman stuff, and that's all fine and good, but, I guess maybe it's just a matter of nostalgia, and I just kind of prefer this more than the Ron Wasserman stuff, but, that's just me. But yeah, they should release the soundtrack, or at least like a compilation album of, score cues from that era of Power Rangers, particularly this season, because this season has some really great musical themes.
Still, this thing is friggin' awesome, linking up to form one giant flying train. The rail rescues, in turn, deploy individual vehicles for them to pilot that become the Megazord. I admit, I don't mind this as much as I did Turbo's vehicle-based Zords. With them, it seemed just bizarre that a wizard who mostly utilized animals for the basis of the Zord's aesthetics and powers would suddenly switch over to race cars and SUVs for the designs. And yes, I know, limited by the Sentai footage, but again, they weren't under any obligation to use Car Rangers as opposed to one of the Sentai that had come before. They were...
I had that as a toy. The Megazord that does like the punching thing. I had that toy. Oh my god! I should look up a picture of that. I'll put it right here. But yeah, I had that action figure when I was a kid. It was so cool. You could like move the top of its torso, and it would do like the punching thing. It was so cool. I wonder where that. I think we probably got rid of it, unfortunately. But yeah, no, it's a really cool figure.
Were still close enough to some Sentai seasons that they might have been able to make it work. In this case, it was a government operation that designed their weapons, so it would make sense that they'd design them around vehicles.
Yeah.
Of course, there are a number of filler episodes after the premiere, but aside from character development I'll get to at the end, only one really deserves notice. In Cyborg Rangers, Captain Mitchell's superior officer, General McKnight, comes in with a group of androids to replace the Lightspeed team, since they have superior strength and purportedly can't make mistakes. Of course, Dr. Fairweather gives a cliched, but they haven't got a heart kind of bullcrap speech.
Yeah,
but really their flaw
she
becomes
did.
apparent when they fight a monster and a blast causes them to malfunction and turn on their creators. The Rangers, of course, retrieve their powers and destroy the Cyborg Rangers. Unsurprisingly, no one makes any effort to perfect the android tech so that they can at the very least have backup in case they need a rescue or assistance. However, its real significance, with the Rangers gladly willing to join in to help even without their powers, will be more significant in a later video. And really, the heart thing, while a bit childish in its phrasing, is more about how the human factor plays a larger role in the Rangers than just combating Diabolico. The Rangers are frequently seen not just fighting monsters, but actively helping people who are harmed by the monster attacks, be it in aftermath or while the attack is in progress. The cyborgs are controlled from a single large remote controller and are clearly for combat only. And while it's bizarre that normal rescue services are apparently not around a lot of the time, there's a reason it's called Lightspeed Rescue. They're meant to be fast-deploying rescue services who can serve as both a defensive and offensive force. It's why the cyborgs, by the way, how are they cyborgs if they're entirely robotic and contain no organic components, should still be perfected so that they can at least have an offensive force if the Rangers need to be acting in a rescue capacity at the same time.
Willy-nilly.
After some filler episodes, Queen Banshira's spirit contacts her forces and resurrects a few monsters that severely damaged the rescue Megazord. However, Dr. Fairweather has been working on a new weapon, the Super Train Megazord. The rail rescues are reconfigured so that they form the new Megazord, and the sequence is just badass as the rail rescues fly through the air. Oh, and did I mention this thing is freaking huge and fires missiles and Gatling cannons and turbine lasers? This is why government and military funding is sometimes important, because the enemy will occasionally only be defeated by one mindset: needs more DACA. The story continues in From Deep in the Shadows. Carter is given a new experimental titanium morpher, but the test is unsuccessful as he's unable to fully morph and is hurt in the process. They decide not to continue testing the morpher and lock it in a safe in Captain Mitchell's office, which seems to be their attitude about any of their tech that doesn't work right away. We also learn that Captain Mitchell had a son named Ryan, who died in a car crash. That night, someone sneaks onto the Aqua base, not an easy feat considering the base is underwater and all, and gets into the safe to steal the titanium morpher. though one wonders how he knew it was in the safe. During an attack, Vipra summons the Titanium Ranger.
Who are you?
I'm your worst nightmare.
The Titanium Ranger is damn
love the
strong,
look
easily
of
tossing around the Rangers. His weapon is a
Titanium Ranger.
gun that transforms into an axe, which, as we've established, melee weapons that become guns are friggin' awesome.
Yes,
They retreat, but aren't able to
yes.
figure out who could have taken the powers, though Joel speculates that someone inside of Lightspeed must have done it. And look, I know the reason why the base is underwater is because the demons are harmed by water, but shouldn't you guys have security cameras inside the base just in case? In their next confrontation, the Rangers utilize a new weapon, the V-Lancers, which temporarily opens the Titanium Ranger's visor. Captain Mitchell recognizes him, despite the face mask he still has on under it. He orders the group to withdraw. The Titanium Ranger, despite being injured, demanding they continue to fight. Captain Mitchell reveals that the Titanium Ranger is his son. He explains that in the car crash, they went over a cliff, but he managed to hang onto a root. Dana had her arms around his shoulders and neck, but Ryan was holding onto his foot and starting to slip. Diabolico appeared and said he'll save Ryan, but only if his life belongs to him. After Ryan fell, Mitchell screamed for Diabolico to save him, and he promised that he won't see his son again until his 20th birthday. Admittedly, this is weird since Diabolico was supposed to be sealed away in the castle.
I really like that whole detail. Again, it adds to what I had mentioned before, where this season really started to feel a bit darker than previous seasons, and it wasn't afraid to be more thematically darker and more serious in that regard. So, yeah.
But it does make for a very good deal with the devil kind of thing, appropriate for a season with demons, and it's very tragic and all. Diabolico tells Ryan that his father doesn't care about him, that he was going to let him fall, and that he only loves his daughter. When the Titanium Ranger appears and goes on a rampage, Dana goes off to confront him. It seems like she's getting through to him at first, but when the other Rangers appear, he retreats. Captain Mitchell and Ryan meet up, and it's revealed that he doesn't remember the circumstances behind the fall. Diabolico just telling him a different version of the story. However, when Ryan tackles him off a cliff and they're put in the same situation, he suddenly remembers. The tree won't support their combined weight, and Captain Mitchell decides to drop down and save his son. However, Ryan lets go and morphs, saving them. He decides to leave Diabolico and the city, but he takes off the titanium morpher before he goes. He tells his father that he's leaving Mariner Bay so he can find out who he is and whether...
I just noticed in the playback for when Captain Mitchell was falling, you can clearly tell that the actor was not doing that stunt. It was a very unconvincing stunt double. Like, the hair gave it away. Like, if you look closely, you're like, yep, no, that's not Captain Mitchell. That's somebody else who has a much more mop top-esque haircut.
whether or not he's truly a good guy in light of all this. The captain hands him a box, telling him to open it when he realizes that he is good. At first he plans to leave on a bus, but when he hears of an emergency caused by Diabolico's latest plan, he runs back, saves a family, and opens the box to reveal his titanium morpher. He morphs and helps save the Rangers from 3 of Diabolico's monsters. Ryan joins up with Lightspeed, but that night he has a dream where Diabolico burns a snake tattoo onto his back.
From now on, every time you morph, the Cobra will move up your body closer and closer.
Once it reaches his neck, it'll strangle him. When he wakes up, the tattoo is still there. Instead of doing, you know, the sensible thing and telling someone about the tattoo,
I think this, again, I remember seeing this when I was a kid. I think this kind of aided in my phobia of snakes. Yeah. Anyway. I mean, it's a rational fear.
he just proceeds to happily leap into battle alongside the other Rangers despite the risk. All during the fight, the Cobra moves up his body, harming him along the way. Strangely, during this episode, we also see the super trained Megazord and the Lightspeed Megazord together at the same time, even though the previous times they summoned the Super Train Megazord, they needed the individual Zords inside of the Super Train. Queen Banshira, contacting Diabolico, informs him that she's tired of how long it's taken to deal with things, and swears that if he doesn't destroy Mariner Bay, she'll transfer his powers over to her son. Diabolico, refusing to allow an infant to have his power, unleashes his 3 most powerful monsters on the Rangers. The first is destroyed by the previously mentioned team-up of the 2 Megazords. Carter reveals to Ryan that he saw the tattoo moving during the fight, and Ryan explains about it. He doesn't want to tell his father because it's the first chance he's had to do something good and doesn't want his dad to pull him from ranger duties. However, Captain Mitchell overhears from outside the room, someone seriously needs to install soundproofing in the Aquabase, and comes in, telling him that he has to bench him until they can get rid of the tattoo, since he won't lose him again. Fairweather develops a new Zord, the Max Solar Zord, but it's designed to be operated by the Titanium Rangers, so they can't use it yet. As the Rangers fight the remaining 2 monsters, and are swiftly smacked around, Ryan steals the Max Solar Zord to go help them. The Solar Zord actually heads into space and goes towards the sun, charging its solar panels before assuming a humanoid form. He destroys the monsters, but passes out due to the strain of the Cobra. Examination of Ryan reveals that if he morphs one more time, it'll kill him. Strangely, no one takes his morpher away from him so he doesn't do something stupid. Naturally, he ends up doing something stupid. Diabolico unleashes a combined version of his 3 monsters against the Rangers, but luckily Dr. Fairweather now has yet another weapon. Battle boosters, which are essentially battleizers for the Rangers, though there isn't any advanced armor when they're introduced. Ryan, in the meantime, decides to do something about the Cobra and realizes that it also came from the tomb where Diabolico was imprisoned. He heads there without any backup and takes on a monster version of the Cobra, which when you think about it means that Ryan is literally trying to punch a tattoo to death. I love this show. Diabolico takes on the Rangers himself and just walks through the Super Train Megazord's weapons. He cuts a huge hole in it, forcing the Rangers to abandon it and go into the Lightspeed Megazord. Ryan, in the meantime, defeats the Cobra monster and lifts the curse, heading out to aid the other Rangers. By plugging the battle booster into the Lightspeed Megazord, the Solar Zord combines with it. The Lightspeed Solar Zord absorbs Diabolico's blasts and sends them right back at him.
Be assured that Queen Banshira will avenge my defeat 1,000-fold.
Yeah, knowing how terrible a boss she is, it's more likely she'll just dock you for not putting in for time off. Diabolico's power transfers into the baby Impus, who becomes encased in a cocoon. Queen Banshira contacts the Rangers.
Behold my heir, at your destructor.
The Rangers shoot at the cocoon, unleashing Impus's more evolved form.
I am Olympius, son of Queen Banshira. Bow down before me now.
Carter, being a badass, just keeps charging the guy, even though Olympius smacks him around. But he's forced back after shenanigans in the episode, and afterwards he basically becomes the new Diabolico. A few episodes later, the planets align, and thanks to a mystical ceremony, Queen Banshira's spirit is able to resume physical form, but only briefly, as Ryan destroys the ceremony site where she was being summoned. She arrives, but only half-formed and encased in stone. With Banshira's return, Ryan elects to leave and search for a way to trap the demons again. Since Ryan is gone, Fairweather modifies the battle boosters so that they can operate the Max Solar Zord without him, as well as unveiling yet another giant robot, the Omega Megazord, one of the most awesomely named Megazords ever. There's just something so satisfying about saying its name. All that mega. It'd be a real shame if in a later season adding adjectives onto a mega name just got really confusing and stupid. A few fillers later, Banshira decides that Olympius has failed too often and will give Vipera and Loki command of the evil forces. Olympius tricks them, planning to destroy them, but they escape and end up back near the desert tomb. They enter it and conduct a little spell, Ryan watching from nearby.
Back! And better than ever!
Amusingly, the previously on Power Rangers bits on the next few episodes use a different, much worse take of Vipera's line.
Arise and live again!
Like they were deliberately trying to sabotage her character, since at this point, those previously on segments were always showing the last few episodes, and thus people would see this bad performance over and over when she did a better, not great, but better job in the actual episode. Diabolico tries to confront Olympius, but Banshira stops the fight, saying their petty squabbles are meaningless, and they're both gonna work for her. Not really resolving the whole who's in command now thing. Ryan, in the meantime, copies all the glyphs off of the tomb's wall and heads off to try to find someone who can translate them. But enough about the main plot. This is supposed to take place in the main universe, right? So, how are things over?
Sorry, I can't stop thinking about that. You know, just seeing those two trying to, you know, fight each other in those, like, really cumbersome, constraining monster suits. Oh, God, I feel bad for the suit actors in that. So there we have it. Come back next time for part 2, which, just so you know, might be 2 weeks late. I'm still working on it. I thought I'd have it done by today, but I don't, unfortunately. In the meantime, I'll have something for you to kind of tide you over in the time between this and part 2. I promise. I have something coming that's way closer to being finished than that. So, no worries. Till next time, I'm Marc Aquino. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Marc Aquino YouTube channel.